G20, we're
All
talking
the
Quad. No, they're very different.
So I2U2, BRICS, SCO.
No, no.
Look at the number of partnerships that we have now.
Okay, all right, very good. Let's stop there. Why do we have so many partnerships? Answer, because we get along with so many people. How are we able to manage different kinds of partnerships? Maybe because we're good at it. Maybe because they see value in us. Are they delivering things? Well, it depends on them. Take Quad, for instance. Definitely Quad has delivered on a number of issues and likely to deliver on many more. In the case of I2U2, it has just started, but already there are projects on food security and renewable energy which have come out of it. In some cases like BRICS, which by the way was not started recently, it has an old history, they are not meant to be necessarily translated into specific outcomes. Often they express a collective position on a set of issues. So I think it depends on the forum concerned. I think you can't club all of them. It's not a one size fits all. But if I mean, as I said, the opposition will say what it will. But you please go out there in the world. I've just come back today from Australia.
Yeah.
People regard Quad as probably the most important strategic foreign policy development in the last 20 years.
Yesterday you were in Sydney. I mean, you just were in Australia. Today you met with Senator Chuck Schumer. And there's this whole talk that, India has moved so close to the Western Bloc that our position, which was centrist with non-alignment, no longer exists. Is that over?
Well, people who say that must have been on a holiday through January when we had 120 countries, mainly from the global south, engaging us in what I think was probably the largest such exercise going on in the world. And yes, we have very good relations with the US, generally with the West. I don't think there's any reason for us to be defensive about it. I think it's in national interest. In fact, if you look at the big changes in the world, this is something which has been very much in the making, especially in the last decade. But in all of this, please see how strongly our relationship with Russia has held steady. So, surely you do not suggest that our relationship with Russia is any the less over these years.
So Prime Minister Modi told Putin that, this is not an era of war. War is not going to be the solution, to problems. Do you feel that the world is seeing it like that about the Ukraine crisis?
I think the world is still very divided. The sentiment that Prime Minister voiced is a widely shared sentiment. It's also a sentiment which is particularly strong in the countries of the South. You asked me what is the voice of Global South, what was that about? Look, today you have a huge number of countries in Africa and Asia and Central America, Latin America, Caribbean, Pacific, who feel that our issues are being put on the side and the entire oxygen is being sucked up by the Ukraine conflict. So nobody is really worrying about whether I get food and what cost I get food, what's happening to fuel, fertilizers, debt. And today, remember, even middle income countries are going into debt. Okay. So what we want to do, and I think that was very much on Prime Minister's mind, he wants somewhere to create a momentum for peace, if you would. And I think that was his first public expression. Remember, he'd been talking to Presidents Putin and Zelensky on the phone as well. And that was his first public expression. In practical ways, we've been helping out. When this Black Sea grain deal was done, we did a little bit there to help. When I was in New York, the Ukrainian Prime Minister actually had some concerns about the safety of the nuclear power plant. So I spoke to RPM and then got his approval to both engage the Russians and pass on some messages there and the IAEA as well. We are working with the UN Secretary General on some issues, particularly fertilizer, because a lot of the countries of the global south, the developing countries, they are facing serious fertilizer securities because Russia is one of the biggest exporter of fertilizers. So I don't, I think it would not be fair today to reduce a very complex issue, the Ukraine conflict, to a binary of are you on this side or that side, are you for peace or for war. I think it's much more intricate than that, and we are involved in some of the intricacies, but we have to wait and see where this goes. What both Ukraine and Russia know is that if we can be of any use, we will be willing, our sort of capabilities and sort of goodwill is there for that. We'll have to wait and see where this goes.
So has the war impacted on the relationship between India and Russia and between Mr. Modi and Mr. Putin?
No. Look, our relationship with Russia, I think, has been extraordinarily steady. It has been steady through all the turbulence in global politics. So, as I said again, the opposition, perhaps it's their job to criticize. It would be nice if they do it with a little bit more information and accuracy. But I do think, some of what they say needs to be put through some kind of lens, some kind of filter of
you're putting it through a sieve right now.
Reality, and not very much is coming out of that sieve.
Right.
So look, I think today we are in a good position. I mean, you asked me what is your 9-year report card. My relationship with the major powers is very good. I grant you that China is an exception, and it is an exception. And please notice, I said China, China.
Okay, you mention it.
Yes. So I grant you that China is an exception. It is an exception because China has violated agreements that we have and is today has a posture on our border for which I had to have a counter posture. But overall, my relationship with the major powers, if you can call them, are very good. I think our relationship with Europe is probably the best ever that we've had. Our relationship in the Quad has really been a very, very effective mechanism.
Even in Australia, Dr. Jaishankar, there have been attacks on gurdwaras and temples in Australia, Canada, UK.
On temples.
On temples. And in gurdwara in Canada, there is
temple in
temple.
Temple in Canada.
Okay.
Yes.
So, how are we going to react to this? Or
no, we have taken this up, and we have cautioned these governments that these are very radical extremist forces at work, and that they need to respond to it appropriately.
Okay. As I wind up, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Come back to you. You were in Fiji and at this Hindi conference, and you were speaking in Hindi.
Vishwa
Hindi Sammelan. And so, how many languages do you speak? You're a polyglot. I've heard you speak Russian.
No. This is all
Tamil,
highly. I'm
Hindi,
very
English.
modest and realistic in making claims. I obviously I speak English. I speak Hindi. I won't say at a very high standard, but with a kind of a street smart fluency.
The Tamilian Hindi, or is it a JNU Hindi?
No. It's actually a Delhi Hindi.
Delhi Hindi.
I mean, I was born in Delhi. Okay.
You were born in Delhi?
Yes,
okay.
I was born in Delhi. I was born in Delhi. I grew up in Delhi. I spent, whatever time I've spent in India is largely Delhi. So it's a very Delhi person's, I would say, fluent, not always complex Hindi, but I think
you're breaking the stereotype of a Tamilian speaking Hindi, fluent Hindi. You do speak.
But because I grew up in Hindi, I didn't have the advantage of ever studying Tamil. I spent very few years.
You grew